I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get blindsided like this. Corinne and I had been together for over 10 years, married for 5, and honestly I thought we had a pretty solid thing going. Sure, we had our fights, but what couple does? I always believed that if you loved someone and committed, you work through the rough patches. But I guess I was wrong. It all started a couple of months ago. Corinne, my wife, had been acting weird. Little things, missing from the house for hours without telling me where she was, her phone always on silent, her being more irritable than usual. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she was stressed at work or just dealing with some personal stuff. But then I started noticing other things. Her phone started ringing at odd hours, and she'd make a quick dash to answer it, then slip into the bedroom or bathroom to talk. When I'd ask her who it was, she'd brush it off, throw some kind of snarky remark, or say she was just catching up with a friend. That's when I first started feeling suspicious. I mean, it's not unusual for people to have friends, but the way she was hiding her phone, being secretive, it wasn't normal. One evening I was in the living room watching TV and she was in the kitchen. Suddenly I noticed her grab her phone and quickly hide it behind her back when she heard me coming. My heart sank. I asked what she was doing and she just rolled her eyes and snapped, "Nothing, just messing around on social media." God, you're so paranoid. But I could tell she was lying. Her face was flushing and her fingers kept tapping nervously on her phone. Then came the night I found that damn email. We were in bed, both exhausted after a long day, and I was scrolling through my email on her laptop, something I do occasionally for fun, just to see if I missed anything. And there it was. An email from a guy named Mike talking about meeting up to check out some custom guitars and how she loved the wood selection trips they had been taking. My stomach dropped. I froze. My mind was racing, but I couldn't believe what I was reading. I looked at her, lying there asleep, and suddenly I saw everything clearly. The way she'd been acting, the secretive phone calls, the way she'd always find excuses to leave the house. It wasn't just about the guitar. They had been meeting during those wood selection trips. That's when I started piecing it together. They'd been meeting in the workshop, behind my back among unfinished instruments, probably when I was at work or out with friends. I knew there were security cameras in the workshop, but I'd never really paid attention. I decided to check them the next day. The next morning I woke up feeling numb but also furious. I knew I had to confirm what I suspected. I pulled up the security footage from the workshop on my laptop. I couldn't believe what I saw. There she was, Corinne, sneaking into the workshop during daylight, meeting with Mike, that custom guitar maker. They'd be working together on some project, but I knew what was really going on. I saw her leaning close, whispering, touching his arm. They'd meet there in secret multiple times. And the worst part, she had told me she was going out shopping with her sister or meeting friends for coffee. Lies, all of it. Seeing those videos hit me like a train. I couldn't believe she'd gone so far, lying to my face for months. Every time I asked about her whereabouts, she'd brush me off, act like I was crazy. And now I knew she had been sneaking off to meet that guy, Mike, the guitar maker, in the workshop where I spent so much of my time. It felt like my entire world was crashing down around me. I sat there staring at the screen, watching her laugh with him, touch his arm, lean in close like they were more than just business partners. I couldn't understand how she could betray me like this, especially over something so stupid, wood selection for a custom guitar. I mean, I get it, guitars are her thing, but not at the expense of our marriage. Those meetings weren't about guitars, they were about her cheating on me. That realization made my stomach turn. All those nights she'd come home late, claiming she was working late or meeting with friends, when she was really in that workshop with him. I didn't sleep that night. I just kept replaying everything in my head, trying to make sense of it. I felt so angry, so betrayed, but also crushed. I'd always believed in honesty, in sticking things out. And here she was, lying to my face, sneaking around behind my back. I couldn't even look at her the same way anymore. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by this stranger who was capable of so much deception. The next day was a blur. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't want to do it right away. I needed to gather my thoughts to figure out what I was going to say. I decided to wait until she came home from work. I wanted her to sweat a little to realize I knew the truth. When she finally walked in that evening, I was already sitting on the couch, my arms crossed, waiting. She looked surprised, then annoyed when she saw me. "Hey, what's wrong? Why are you sitting there like you're about to chew me out?" She snapped, trying to act casual. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "I know about Mike. I know about the meetings in the workshop. I saw the videos." Her face went pale, and she immediately tried to deny it, but I wasn't about to let her sweep this under the rug. She started with the typical lies. "It's nothing, just a project we're working on. He's a good friend and we're just talking about guitars." I cut her off. "That's bullshit, Corinne. I saw the emails, the videos. You've been sneaking into my workshop, meeting him in secret. How long has this been going on?" Her eyes flicked away and she threw out a bunch of excuses. How she needed a friend, how they were just working on something, how it wasn't anything serious. But I could see right through it. She was lying and she knew it. The thing that hurt me the most wasn't even just the cheating, it was how easily she lied. Her tone was bitchy, dismissive even. She told me I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that I was jealous for no reason. She kept saying, "You don't own me," like that was supposed to justify everything. But I knew better. I knew that she had been betraying my trust, that she had been lying to my face for months. I felt a mix of rage, sadness, and disappointment that I didn't even know how to process. I remember sitting there, staring at her, my mind racing. I felt sick, like I'd been punched in the gut. All the years we'd spent building a life together felt like they were crumbling in that moment. I wanted to scream, to yell at her, to demand answers, but I couldn't. I was stunned silent, feeling more lost than I ever had before. That night marked the beginning of a long, painful road I never expected to walk. After that confrontation, everything changed. She kept up her act, throwing around more of her typical bitchy attitude, acting like I was the one overreacting. She told me I was crazy, that I was controlling, and that I had no right to question her. Honestly, hearing her say that just made me more furious. How could she lie so easily? How could she pretend everything was fine after I'd just seen her sneaking around, meeting that guy in my workshop? I knew I had to do something. I couldn't keep living in this fog of lies. The truth was out now, and I needed to figure out my next move. I started gathering all the evidence I could find, screenshots of emails, copies of the security footage, her phone records. I was obsessively combing through everything, trying to piece together the full story. I wanted proof, not just for myself, but to confront her with everything and finally get some honest answers. But here's the thing. What really hit me hard was the emotional toll. I'd always believed in loyalty, in honesty, in the idea that marriage was about trust. And now that trust was shattered. I felt like I didn't even know who she was anymore. She was so dismissive, so bitchy, like I was just some obstacle she had to get past to keep her secret. I'd never seen her so contemptuous before. It was like I was nothing to her, just a half-remembered annoyance. One night, I decided I'd had enough. I sat her down again, this time with everything I'd found. I wanted her to see the evidence, to really understand how much I knew. I put the screenshots and videos on the table between us. Her face twisted with a bitter smile as she looked at it all. She scoffed and said, "So what, you think I care? I'm not some little girl. I don't owe you explanations for everything I do." I could feel my blood boiling. That's when I realized she didn't even see this as a big deal. To her, it was just a game, a way to get her kicks. Her reaction made me feel so many things: anger, disgust, disappointment. But mostly I felt betrayed. All those years of marriage, the promises we made, they suddenly felt meaningless. I'd been a fool to believe she was faithful. The way she dismissed everything with that bitchy attitude, like I was the problem, it made me realize she never really cared about me. She only cared about herself and whatever thrill Mike was giving her. I spent days just walking around in a fog. My mind kept replaying every moment, every lie. I felt like I'd been punched repeatedly. I kept asking myself how I missed all this, how I didn't see the signs. But the truth was, she was a master at hiding it, at lying with her words and her attitude. She was so bitchy, so dismissive, that I thought maybe she didn't even care what I thought anymore. And maybe she didn't. That realization crushed me even more. As the days went on, I found myself sinking deeper into a state I couldn't quite shake. Every time I saw her, her attitude was more dismissive, more bitchy, like I was some nuisance she tolerated only because I was the husband. It was clear she had no remorse, no guilt, just a sense of entitlement that she could cheat and lie and still expect me to be okay with it. Honestly, I'd never felt so insignificant, so disposable. I started thinking about what I was going to do next. Part of me wanted to just cut her loose, throw her out, and be done with the whole mess. But I also felt this overwhelming need for revenge, a sick desire to make her pay for what she'd done. I'd been betrayed so badly I couldn't just walk away without some kind of payback. I decided to turn her own game against her. I'd give her enough rope to hang herself. By exposing everything, I wanted her to see what she'd lost. So I devised a plan. I'd contact Mike, the guitar maker, and see what he had to say about everything. I wanted to hear it from the horse's mouth, see if he really thought she was just working, or if he knew how deep this was. I also started recording our conversations, gathering more evidence, knowing that I'd need it for whatever was coming next. I wanted her to understand that I was serious, that I wasn't going to be some pawn in her little game anymore. The day I called Mike, I was nervous but determined. I didn't want to do anything reckless, but I also knew I had to make her understand that I wasn't going to be played anymore. When I finally got him on the line, he didn't try to deny anything. In fact, he was pretty candid about everything. He said they'd been meeting during wood trips, but that it was just sex, nothing serious, he claimed. That hurt more than anything. The fact that she was just some other woman he boned during work trips made it worse. I thought about all those weekends she'd left, saying she was out with friends or shopping, and now I knew what she was really doing. Listening to Mike talk, I felt this mixture of rage and utter disgust. I couldn't believe she'd been lying to me, putting on the fake smile, the bitchy attitude, all while sneaking around behind my back. I felt humiliated, like I'd been a fool for so long. I started to get angry enough to want to confront her again, to tell her exactly what I knew, but I also knew that I'd have to be smart about it. I didn't want her to get ahead of me, to cover her tracks. That night, I sat her down again, this time with everything I'd gathered. I told her I knew everything, the emails, the videos, the phone calls, and what Mike had just confirmed. Her face fell, but she quickly snapped back into her usual bitchy mode, telling me I was overreacting, that I was jealous, insecure, and crazy. She accused me of spying on her, of invading her privacy, even though I'd only done what any betrayed spouse would do, look for the truth. She was trying to spin it like I was the bad guy, like I was the one who caused all this mess. For a moment I felt a flicker of satisfaction. I'd finally caught her, and she knew it, but underneath that, I felt hollow, empty. The betrayal ran so deep that I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to forgive her, if I even wanted to. The woman I'd loved, the woman I'd married, was gone. Replacing her was this cold, bitchy stranger who thought she could lie her way out of anything. And that's when I realized that whatever was left of my marriage was probably beyond saving. My heart was breaking, but I knew I had to start thinking about myself now. I had to figure out what was best for me, even if it meant tearing everything down. In the days that followed, I felt like I was walking through a fog. Every time I looked at Corinne, her bitchy attitude, that dismissive sneer, made me want to scream. I had enough evidence now, proof of her betrayal, her lies, her manipulation. Yet somehow, I was still trying to process it all, to figure out what to do next. Part of me wanted to throw her out immediately, to end this nightmare once and for all. But another part, more calculated, knew I had to handle this carefully if I wanted to come out of it with some dignity intact. I decided I'd give her one last chance to come clean, to admit everything without me having to drag it out of her. I sat her down in the living room again, my heart pounding as I looked into her eyes. I told her I knew about the affair, about Mike, about everything. How I'd seen the videos, heard her phone calls, read her emails. I told her I was done playing her game. I wanted her to admit she'd been lying, cheating, sneaking around behind my back. Her reaction was what I expected: defiance, bitchy attitude, more lies. She slammed her hand on the table and said, "You're just insecure, you don't trust me, this is all in your head." She accused me of being paranoid, controlling, jealous, that I was just making up stories because I was insecure about losing her. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I was past denial. I knew the truth, and I knew she knew I knew it. That night I stayed awake, scrolling through the evidence again. More videos, screenshots, messages. The pain was overwhelming. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut every time I remembered her smiling, pretending everything was fine. But now I was angry, furious at how she'd been so bitchy, so dismissive, as if I was just some obstacle she needed to get past to keep her secret. I realized how little she cared about our marriage, about me. She'd thrown everything away for some sex and fleeting excitement, and I was left to pick up the pieces. I started thinking about my options. I could confront her again, threaten her with everything I had, or I could just cut my losses. Honestly, I was leaning toward leaving, walking away from this toxic mess. But I also wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd lost, so I decided to take control. I contacted a lawyer, started drafting divorce papers, and planned my next moves carefully. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. Her attitude, her lies, her manipulations had burned that bridge. But I also didn't want to do anything impulsive. I wanted to walk out with my dignity, knowing I'd done everything I could to get to the truth. The thing that stung the most was how her attitude hadn't changed. She was still bitchy, still dismissive, still convinced she was in the right. It made me realize that she didn't respect me, didn't see me as her partner anymore, just as someone to lie to, cheat on, and manipulate. That realization was the final push. I knew I had to get out of this for my own sanity. I started packing my things, planning to leave quietly, but also making sure I had all the evidence I needed to prove what she'd done. As I watched her go about her day, acting like everything was normal, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. I knew my life was about to change forever, but I also knew I couldn't stay in that mess. I'd been betrayed in the worst way, and the only thing I could do now was to get out, rebuild, and learn from the nightmare she'd created. The day I finally moved out was one of the hardest days I've ever experienced. It was like packing up my life, knowing I was leaving behind someone I once loved, someone I thought I knew. I remember standing in the doorway, looking back at the house that had once been our home, now just a shell of broken trust and shattered dreams. Corinne was still inside, acting like nothing had changed, that she was the victim. Her bitchy attitude was on full display, but I saw through it all. I had my evidence packed away, screenshots, recordings, everything I needed. I didn't say much. I just told her I was done, that I couldn't stay with someone who lied and cheated so easily. I told her I file for divorce, that I wanted no part of her game anymore. Her snarky reply was a dismissive "good, then get out," like she didn't even care. Honestly, I felt a wave of relief mixed with a deep sadness. I'd lost someone I thought was my partner, but I gained my freedom, my sanity, and my dignity. The aftermath was brutal. The first few weeks were a blur of emotions: anger, sadness, betrayal, relief, sometimes all at once. I had to rebuild my life from scratch, piece by piece. I went no contact with Corinne, deleted her number, blocked her on social media. It was hard, but I knew I had to for my own peace of mind. Sometimes I wondered if she ever truly understood what she lost, or if she even cared. I guess that was part of her personality: bitchy, dismissive, entitled. That's what made her so easy to walk away from in the end. In the quiet moments, I thought about the lessons I'd learned. Trust is fragile, and betrayal cuts deeper than I ever imagined. I learned that some people are good at hiding who they really are, and it's up to us to be vigilant. I also learned that revenge isn't always about violence or anger. It's about reclaiming your life, standing your ground, and knowing when enough is enough. I don't hate her anymore. I just feel sorry for her, for the woman who threw away everything for a fling and a little bit of excitement. Now, I'm focusing on myself. I got a new job, started therapy, and I've been rebuilding my confidence. I'm not perfect, and I still get moments where the betrayal stings, but I'm moving forward. I'll never forget what happened, but I refuse to let it define me. I've learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away, holding your head high, and choosing to live honestly and openly. If there's one thing I'd want anyone reading this to take away, it's this: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the Red flags, no matter how bitchy or dismissive someone seems. If your gut tells you something's wrong, listen to it. Because at the end of the day, the only person you can really count on is yourself. And sometimes, walking away is the bravest thing you can do.